Good morning.
Good morning, sir.
You were just about the first person I've talked to today.
Same here. Same here.
You can probably hear it.
Yeah, a little bassy this morning. It's all right.
Yep. That's cool. So what's going on with you?
The usual. This week has been a bit more of a tuple week as for me, as I kind of get close to completion on the little project I've been working on, and it's been cool to see that come together.
Spencer tubled me the other day and showed me sort of where it's at. And it's like, ooh, this is looking kind of like it works.
Yeah. We had a pairing session. I was like, my goal was to get this like as close to plug and play as possible because I had basically all the almost all the information I would need to get it set up in that way, short of just like small technical things that I wasn't aware of. Right. I mean, it's kind of nice. There's a clear delineation between the front end part, which lives in a web view, it's just a React application that communicates with the Swift application, the native macOS client, through this bridge. So there's just commands that you fire across the bridge over to Swift, and then Swift will issue state updates that then propagate back into the React app. And so it kind of creates this nice separation of concerns where I can mock up interfaces just by plugging in different states that may happen in the real world. And that's led to, being able to kind of present this in a way for the purpose of development where we can kind of see a bunch of the states and play around with them. And so that's been a fun part of this too. It's just like a lot of times you have to wait till like the end of a project to get to play with something. And so to be able to kind of mock that up pretty easily because of the architecture.
Totally. Also, the fact that we could like pretty easily integrate this thing that has been operating, like has been pushing forward independently for a while. That's pretty amazing.
Yeah. So it was a magical moment when when Spencer pulled it down and ran the build and then like opened up the tuple client for the first time and it was my code running in there. And it's like, whoa, it looks like a real thing.
To put you on the contributors list now.
Yeah.
I was talking yesterday with Spencer and Joel, and I was asking, do you think we're gonna get some whiners, some pushback, some anger? Because like I think it's clearly a step forward, but like there's inevitably going to be some people that are like, oh, I hate this new whatever. Why did you do this?
Yeah, we're moving people's cheese right now, so there there's going to be some people who just don't like change, right? That always happens.
Yeah. So I guess what I'm saying is I'm bracing myself for some people to be mad at us.
Yep. That's happen.
Okay.
It'll happen.
Yep. But no, overall, I think it's going to be well received. I just got some feedback earlier in the week, and someone was like, "This is amazing, but please hire a UX person. There's a bunch of little things." And I was like, "No, you're right. You're not wrong."
On it.
Yep. Good news. Wait for a little bit, and hopefully some of this will be improved.
Yeah. One other thing, that realization I had this week talking to our mastermind group, like I was trying to articulate why this project in particular, like the timing of it and why like I've enjoyed it so much. And because it is a slight deviation away from what I've been doing for a long time, which is trying to, working on my own products and like working at the very early stage of things. And I do want to clarify because someone reached out and they're like, hey, must be bittersweet now that you're working for Tuple and giving up on your own stuff. And I'm like, no. Hold on a second there. So I guess maybe it was a little bit confusing when I first talked about it. But, I'm still pursuing my own products. But like this has been a nice kind of little side hustle. And I think one of the things that I've really enjoyed about it is that it lets me do my craft in a way that working on an earlier stage startup doesn't necessarily allow you to do. When you're trying to get something off the ground, you're building a minimum viable product, you're always contending with like, what corners can I cut in a way that is still responsible and still gets me to, the end state that I want to get to as quickly as possible so I can validate this in the market and yada, yada, yada. And then there's always, time later on where you can come back and like really, really polish it or really like spend time making it into undoing the corner cutting that you kind of had to do early on in the name of validation and getting something to market quickly. That is a certain skill set, learning how to do that well and like how to figure out what parts are necessary, what parts can you leave off. But it doesn't necessarily satisfy the part of a practitioner, a craftsman who wants to like do the job right, which means spending spending more time on the details of something than would be responsible to do at an early stage. I've been in this kind of early stage land for a long time now, and always kind of working in this mentality of like, well, I would really like to do X, Y, and Z, but really I only need X to technically launch this thing. So let's just build X and then we'll worry about Y and Z later. It's been nice to have like a project where I can spend some time working on the Y and Z part of it. And, that's the mandate of the project. And like software development is just as much a hobby for me as it is my line of work. And so getting to do my craft in what feels like more of a complete way has been good for my mental state. And I think it helps me when I have to go back into the mode of like, all right, now we're just working on minimum viable features, and I'm not operating in that way because it's irresponsible to do that. Getting to do some of the full craft, I guess, has been really helpful because that's not necessarily the best choice when you're trying to build an MVP. So,
do you feel like it has made you, because you're getting to flex part of your brain that you don't get to normally? Do you feel like is it kind of a net positive on the other work you're doing, like for your own stuff?
I think so. Because, yeah. That's been that's been a good like realization too. It's like it helps with motivation. It helps with like not feeling like I'm always just cutting corners with my craft, but like no, I get to I'm exercising it still, and so that and I know that I'll get to that place with my own products once they're in the market, and once I've gotten past that first phase, then I can achieve that with my own stuff too. And I would never want to stay in this zone forever where you're not getting to invest all the energy that you really want to into a product. Like I'm doing this whole thing because I love building products. It's like that's what I love to do, and that's where I think where my skills lie. And so I do look forward to the point where I can invest that same amount of energy into my own products. But like in the meantime, you kind of gotta wait till you get there, right?
Mm-hmm. So. Yeah. Cool. Well, I'm glad that we can be the recipient of the advanced part of your skills and your knowledge and your ability to polish things.
Yeah, because I think the alternative would be like spend nights and weekends working on a hobby project, but then that's always hard for me to justify in my brain because it's like, well, I need downtime where I'm recharging and resting, and also it's hard to think about putting my efforts into something and not getting a return on it. So in this case, like I'm doing this project and there is revenue attached to it. That's how that can balance the equation for like, yeah, I'm willing to exercise my craft and do this and offset the time that I'm spending on it with some revenue. And also it benefits my own independent work too. So it's kind of a nice little cocktail.
Cool. Great. Well, hey, it works for me.
Yeah. It's a win-win-win.
Yeah. No, I've been super happy with this project moving forward.
Yeah.
And we've talked about some future stuff too. So
yeah.
Some more exciting things to come as well.
Some more to come, for
sure. Cool. Anything else going on in your world? It sounds like it looks like your place is near empty. I hear more room echo and the shelves behind you are empty.
Yeah. So I am moving, which the timing is funny now because I'm downsizing. I'm in a house right now, renting a house a little bit further out from the core of the city, and realized in the long Minnesota winter that I actually want to be a little closer to the action. Like you have more walkability, you'd be able to. This is pre-quarantine. I was working out of coffee shops multiple times a week. It made that really hard being so far away from that stuff. So we're downsizing, moving closer into the city, and it's a pretty exciting move in all respects, except for the fact that like I can't actually go anywhere right now, but eventually things will hopefully return to more normal. So
cool.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Did you hire people to help you move?
I did. Yes.
Okay.
I learned a lesson the hard way a couple of moves ago. So
mm-hmm. That is my advice to everyone: is that it's worth every penny.
Oh yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to cover?
I think that's about it on mine. A little bit lighter week for me.
Yeah.
Overall, but yeah.
Similar. I have sort of a number of projects, so they're all sort of just pushing forward. No huge updates. Like we're looking for Mac OS people, going through the applications there and trying to set up some screening calls with people. I think we are going to end up hiring a QA firm to do some QA testing for us. This trick has worked pretty well for me a couple times, which is just like starting off by asking people on my network, just tweeting basically, being like, hey, who knows about hiring QA people? just because I've never hired for a position like this before. I don't really know how to do it. And I got a couple good responses, including from someone who is a Tubal customer at a company that I respect and admire. And I was like, oh, let's definitely do a call. And he said, hey, we work with this firm and they're awesome. And so I did a call with the firm, and it looks like I think we're going to move forward with them.
I suspect this is kind of like to help the fact that it's very difficult to write automated tests that maybe would automate what a QA person could do, right? Like Tupel's a very complicated, multifaceted application. But
it sure is. Yes. So long term, I think we need to flesh out our automated testing situation, but it's not going to be an easy or quick thing to implement. Hopefully this macOS person we hire might have some experience there. Like we'd love to bring on some expertise in that area. But either way, it's a goal. I think that for catching basic regressions and making just giving us some confidence before we push something out, some automated tests will be great. But there are just so many nasty little things where it's like, oh, you connected a Bluetooth device and then disconnected it and then plugged in some headphones and then your person changed the screen resolution or something. Like there's just so many mutable things that can and do change during a call, before a call, right as a call starts. There's all these. I think having some manual QA is going to be the best way to do this, to do some of that.
Yeah. And do you have a sense of how this type of engagement works? Do you pay a retainer basically to this company and then they do continuously run through a battery of QA tests, or is it on demand when a feature's shipping, or how does that?
We are just getting to the point where we're working on a statement of work basically to figure out exactly how this looks, but they charge per hour of while they're actually hands-on testing the thing or getting trained up on it. What I basically pitched to them, and they seem to say was fairly standard, is we have a QA checklist of just, get the app in this state and then make sure this happens. And what I was imagining is probably slowing down our release cadence a little bit, or at least scheduling it. So it's maybe just every Friday we push out a build as opposed to kind of whenever there's new stuff. And then, on Wednesday we ship them the pre-release thing. They do their tests, they report back, and, we fix or push it if it looks good.
Kind of just get on this release cadence in essence, whatever happens to be ready to ship by Wednesday will enter the QA pipeline and then go out on Friday. Kind of thing.
I think that is, I think that's the plan.
Yeah,
that's at least the sort of my first guess is the best way to do this. We might find that we want to change that over time. Maybe it's every 2 weeks, or maybe there's I don't know, exceptions or whatnot. But that seemed like a reasonable first draft. I wish we had a massive, incredible automated test suite so we could just push all the time, and there was just oh yeah, we're totally confident. But it's hard to achieve that, and so I think the sacrifice of ship a little less frequently, but hopefully with higher quality, is going to be worth the trade-off. I don't think people need Tuple to change every 2 or 3 days. I think once a week or every other week will be plenty if we're shipping good things.
It's still much faster than back in the days when you could only ship when you could burn it onto a disk and put it on a shelf, right? Can
you imagine that?
I
just
can.
Knowing any bugs that are in here are going to just, before you could even do over-the-air patches, installable software on floppies. It was just what could you even, man, what a nightmare.
How would you ever ship software? I mean, then literally, probably shipping came from literally we're putting disks in mailers and sending them out to people.
Right. I mean, you must have to just freeze code weeks or months before your expected ship date, and then just fix bugs until the last minute, and hopefully you don't do anything catastrophic.
I know. Think about the Windows operating system back in the 90s.
Right. Yeah. Brutal. That sounds really hard. I remember when I first started doing Rails development, and the people I worked with were this is so much better than it used to be. And I actually wished I had done web development before Rails, because I didn't really have it. Couldn't appreciate why it was better, or I didn't have that visceral sense of oh my God, I used to do this stuff with CGI scripts or whatever. I feel I missed out the golden age of bad software situations.
Did you write much PHP before doing any Rails stuff?
Write much PHP? No.
Okay, yeah. I did a little bit of web development before kind of the modern MVC frameworks kind of emerged, right? Yeah, my recollection is it just felt like we hadn't the world had not figured out great patterns for how to do stuff. So it was it's you had all this nice structure on desktop application development, and then you had basically spaghetti code for the web and just scripts. Like, and it's before we came to fully appreciate that like web applications are very similar in many ways to native applications, where you have state and you need to represent that state in a certain way. And it happens to be HTML. But it's funny how long it takes this stuff to mature. And then it's no wonder why Rails was such a leap forward and became so influential.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it's cool that there can be leaps forward, right? Like it starts off kind of Wild Westy, and then like some people just figure out good ways of doing things, and over time the best practices win, hopefully, and we move the state of the art forward. We have a couple ideas of how we want to move the state of the art of pairing forward that I'm kind of excited about. Like Spencer whipped up a prototype of an idea we had over the weekend, and it was like, ooh, yeah, this could be cool. I think there's some interesting unsolved problems still, not surprising. So yeah, we'll have to talk about that more offline, perhaps.
All right. I love some secret sauce offline.
Yeah. Just one other thing that I wanted to throw out, which is like sort of an interesting note on what it's like to develop as part of an ecosystem. We have this bug that gets reported to us all the time about the cursor disappearing when someone is using the JetBrains IDE while pairing. And it turns out that it looks like they just have done something really weird with the cursor. And so there's actually a bug on their bug tracker, which I think is like years old now, or at least about a year. There's a bunch of situations in which like the cursor will just disappear under various circumstances. And so people keep reporting this bug to us. And it's like, we sort of keep saying like, we don't think this is us. This doesn't sound like us. But finally, like Joel does a bunch of research in this and found this open issue and is now like in the issue trying to push it forward, being like, at mentioning like owners and maintainers, he'd be like, hey, is there any way you could take a look at this? Because can we help? Can we pay you to fix this or something? Because it looks like a tuple issue every time.
Wow. Yeah, that's crazy. I mean, if you think about it, I mean, when you guys are messing with, with cursor management from the operating system, like you're kind of working in this like shared global namespace of things. Like you have these cursors in your operating system, and if some other application comes in and decides to start doing something with them, then suddenly you guys are stepping on each other's toes.
And of course, everyone writes it as if they are the only ones in the sandbox. So they fire up their thing and they're like, okay, it works, good. Next problem. And it's like, well, but if you do that after we've done this thing, or we did this after you've done that thing, or something, how do we coexist? And we admittedly are doing some, cursor shenanigans.
Yes.
Which so far doesn't seem to break other things, but somehow the thing that we're doing and the thing that they're doing together leads to an issue. And apparently their thing breaks other stuff. So it's not just us. So maybe they're the more wrong people here.
You got to do your shenanigans better.
Yeah, we do. Let's make our shenanigans compatible.
Yeah.
So, more on that saga later.
Yeah. Once again, one of the complexities of working in a native environment with.
Yes.
Yeah. With a lot of
it is nice to at least have a bug to point people to, and they'll be like, "Oh, this doesn't work." We're like, "Yeah, we know this is a known issue. Check out this thread. Maybe upvote it and help us try to get them to fix it with us or something." Sometimes that's a better answer than, that's weird. Which unfortunately is also sometimes our answer, because there's just so many weird things that can happen.
Yeah, complex systems, man.
Yeah, there are times when I think about like all these edge cases that we're handling, and like there's a new beta build of Mac OS, and there's some sort of issue there when pairing with older versions of Mac OS, and I'm just like starting to think like, man, if we were on Linux and Windows, or even just Linux, it's like there's so much depth in just one operating system that like going to another is like, wow, that's going to be what an upgrade in complexity there.
Yeah, man. Where you guys currently stand on multi-OS support? Like, does it feel like a far out thing?
It still feels far out to me.
Yeah.
But Spencer the other day was like, maybe I'll start playing around with it on the weekends. And I was like, okay. So sometimes he just gets the itch and spikes something out, and then, all right, well, I mean, do we want to keep this going or not? So it's hard to say. I certainly couldn't promise anything, but it's just like clearly there is a huge market for developers that use Mac OS that want remote pairing, and it's not a deal breaker for a lot of companies that we don't support other operating systems. We're like closing more and more like big companies you've heard of, and it's like seems to be okay. like they've standardized on Macs, or they're okay if not everyone has it. And so it hasn't really seemed to have held us back. And I mean, supporting less complexity certainly has let us go faster. So it feels a little hard to justify, at least until until you have more capacity. Like if we're rolling in it and we say, let's hire a Linux expert, and like this person's only job is work on this client and like get it and support it and test weird combinations of Ubuntu and whatever, it becomes a lot more feasible.
Yeah. I mean, it's got to be that would be a big shift to go from like you've spent, 2 years building up this solid moat of like reliability and edge case handling, and let's make this thing performant and fast and relatively bug free and on and on and on. And then to go back to kind of square one with a new operating system is like, we have to now do all those learnings for this OS to get up to where we are. Or maybe some of it will be short circuited, hopefully, but still, there's still
there's definitely going to be a core that you don't have to rewrite, or that we won't have to rewrite, which is nice. But yeah, there's a ton of interaction with the OS itself, and like, where is it in the UI, and what happens when you click this, and should this window be over here? And there's a ton of things, and we know Mac OS really well, and we use it every day. The paradigms and the tendencies, or like whatever, like the unofficial rules of how Ubuntu apps work, or Debian or whatever, is like all different stuff that we don't really know.
Yeah.
So it's going to be just a kind of a crazy learning curve.
At Derrick, we had the one guy who insisted on running Linux on his Mac hardware. And I think he really liked his setup, but man, there was always something broken. Like, this was before, I wonder what he's doing now, because this was before we had to do a whole lot of video calling, but like his webcam, he could never get a webcam to work on that thing. And that's the reputation that Linux has, like peripherals, it's very hard to make them work at all. So I can only imagine what's cursor management like in Linux, and there's a lot of dragons there.
I mean, hopefully it would be more hackable, right? Because you can see the source for all this stuff, I think. It's possible we could just write a really good version because it's more open, perhaps. I'm imagining starting this project. It's like, okay, we have basically 2 years of refinement in the Mac OS app. Do we pause development on the Mac OS app while we work on the Linux thing? No, certainly not. And so now we're trying to catch up with something that we're 2 years behind, and it keeps moving forward. So it's like a rewrite, but it's like a rewrite where you have all the problem of like trying to replace an existing system, kind of, in that the system you're sort of replacing keeps evolving. So your target keeps changing. So sounds hard, but also is a hell of a, like bullet to have in the chamber, I guess. Where it's like, yeah, someday we will have the capacity to do this and expand our market by maybe 2x. So that's a kind of a useful thing to have there as an option.
Yeah. It's good. I think you're thinking about it the right way, though. Like, it would, build up enough of a base of traction and revenue and everything else so that you can afford to do this right when you do it, as opposed to trying to bite off way more than it's feasible to chew.
Yep. There also may be like some 80/20s here, like streaming tuple stuff to a browser might be enough to like satisfy the main objection of like, well, like my Linux people can't use it. It's like, well, they can. You can at least, get something passable for them. A lot of the tuple goodness comes from the fact that it is a native app and that we've made tweaks to our dependencies and whatnot. So it would be a subpar experience in the browser, unfortunately, but maybe it would be good enough. But yeah, we'll see. These are the interesting strategic questions that keep me up at night.
Okay. Good promise to have that.
It is, yeah. I mean, the good news is like, it seems like there's a heck of a lot of Mac developers, and we probably have like, less than 1% of them. And so do we need to be more than, 20 times as big or something? I don't think so. We're not venture backed. We don't have to become $1 billion company. We can have a really comfortable little software business over here, and I think it'll be fun.
Yeah, and I bet it's venture to guess that a good percentage of the type of people who have, discerning taste and willingness to adopt, this cool pair programming tool are also probably Mac users. Like, there's some correlation there, I think.
We're going to get some angry letters.
Really? Did I just step on?
It is interesting. I do have the sense as well that Linux users are maybe not the biggest fans of paying for software, or maybe don't appreciate the same things, I guess. But then again, I do think this is a bit of an outdated perspective. Like I think a lot of people went from like Windows to Mac and then have gone from Mac to Linux. I think this is a pretty common path. And so they've traded some of the niceties for the, more hackability or more control or like a nicer dev environment perhaps. And I think this assumption that like Linux people won't pay for software is probably actually getting less true every week. This is one of my theories. And so like I think, and that to me seems like an opportunity, like when the world has shifted but people have not updated their assumptions about it. And I think that's kind of where we're at in the Linux world.
Yeah, I mean, I think like use the example of the engineer who insisted on using Linux at work. I mean, it was because he liked being able to customize his setup completely. I mean, he had a mechanical keyboard, and he had the whole night. You can just imagine like all of the carefully curated things about an environment that made him super productive. And if we were using something like Tuple, he definitely would have wanted in on that, and he was on a team where like they would have paid. And so like there's probably a fair amount of developers like that who are on teams. Maybe some people on Mac, some people insist on having more control over their environment, and still want to be able to pay it. So
yeah, I think it could be a good market actually. After all, although it's like, man, which distributions? There's just like all this fracturing over there.
Yeah.
So like it looks like most people are on Ubuntu. Like when we ask people what they're using, that's the most common, followed by maybe like Debian and then maybe Arch. So maybe like there's a couple big ones that we could support and get pretty good coverage.
Yeah.
Or like maybe it's like Tuple just only officially supports Ubuntu. Otherwise, just you're on your own. Good luck. But I don't know. Definitely some dragons hanging out over there. Well, all right. Anything else you want to cover?
No, I think we should wrap it.
All right. Notes of the show.
Notes of the show can be found at artofproductpodcast.com.
Thanks for listening.
See ya.
Bye.